Hello, today I'm going to show you how to make crops and like this bell pepper for example in our Unity project using VGGT, which we use to generate point clouds and then convert it to a mesh. This may not be what we use in the future, but it's just what we'll be using for now. So I'll go over how the steps to create one basically from scratch, but we already have the point clouds and meshes generated. So to start, I would go to in the scene view, and you can just click any of these and press F or navigate your view to the center. I'm going to click 2D to get out of 2D mode. And I am going to go towards the center. And then you're going to want to navigate to your models folder and then go to the VGGT folder. It looks like I already imported a lot of these, but for future reference, in the Farm Simulator Blender repo, will be stored in the output folder. And you can just drag and drop these folders like they are in here. So once you have them in, I didn't try copying that. I don't know why that's popping up. You can then go ahead and just, since I already created the one for number 1, I'm just going to go ahead and drag out number 2. So just go ahead and drag it out anywhere. I would set the positions to all be 0. And then I would navigate back to the assets folder. Then you want to go into the plants folder and then the VGGT folder. And go ahead and drag this one, the model you just dragged out back into here from this window. And you can go ahead and delete it from here now. So now if you double click, you'll have just this object in its own scene. So now we're going to go ahead and need to make a material and a texture for this. So you're going to go back to assets, go to materials, go to VGGT. I created a folder for the bell peppers, and since this is number 2, I'm just going to create one called 2. Go ahead and drag it onto there. Now we're going to need the texture, so go to Assets, Textures, VGGT, and I've already dragged all the textures so far we have, but for future reference, if there's any more that are added, they'll be in Data and VGGT images. So the one we're going to want to use is 2. Don't know if it lets us drag right onto the material. We can drag number 2 onto the albedo map. Oh, it should show up. Just like that. Now I'm pretty sure in real life this would be a huge bell pepper, so for reference you can go to the plants folder, and the bell pepper. This one is the size of what an actual bell pepper would be, so it gives us a reference of how big we're going to need to make this. So go ahead and delete this. And now I'm going to change the scale of the mesh, so it's not 2 in this instance, it's the one called default, because this has the mesh renderer. If you change the scale of the base game object, it changes the scale of everything else, and it could cause issues, maybe not, but I prefer just scaling down the mesh and just leaving the base game object to be scale of 1. So I'm going to try 0.2 for all the values in the scaling. Compare it, and that's about the same size as a bell pepper. Now, because of how VGGT works, it just creates a point cloud from one direction, so as you can see there's nothing behind it. So a quick easy fix that you can do to get around it is just duplicating, and like his Control D, and moving this backwards, the mesh that is not the actual game object. I'm gonna rotate it around the y-axis 180 degrees. Move it back a little. And I'm also gonna change the x scale to be -0.2. So that way the stem, it's like on the same side. It's a mirror image essentially. And I may also rotate it around the x because it looks a little weird. That's a little more like it. So now, because this is a physics-based simulation, we're going to need to have the stem be able to be cut off. So I would go back into Assets, go into Models, and drag the one called Tomato Stem out. Now this is a bell pepper, but it can be used for this purpose too. And essentially just move it around until it matches up with the stem of the bell pepper. Just 90 degrees. We'll scale it down by half. Try and get it kind of aligned. So now that we have that in place, we're going to want to add a component and have it be Mesh Collider. And just leave that as is, except that we're going to take the tomato stem model that we just had in the model folder, click this arrow, and then we're going to drag this is the actual mesh, so it has the grid icon there. Drag this into where the mesh is at. So now you can see it has the outline of the collision. And finally for the stem, we're going to want to change the layer to stem. Here it is. And just click yes, change children. So now we're going to need to do two more things. We're going to need to attach a script and then give it I guess three things technically. So first, we're going to create an empty. And I'm just going to name this call short for collision. Add a component. It's going to be another mesh collider, but this time it can be convex. Now we're going to drag out the bell pepper I made in the models folder, this mesh. Now if you don't have anything that sort of fits it, you could try messing around with, say, a sphere collider. I'm just changing the settings of that. The center's all off, but yeah, essentially like that. And you can make it smaller. But we're not going to use a sphere collider. This is an example of what you could use if you didn't have one. So I made a separate game object for the collision, because then we can move it around independently of the rest of the game object and scale it down. So I'm going to scale it along the Y a little down. That's more or less about right. So we'll leave the layer as is, and we're going to go back to the base, the root of the game object, and we're going to add a component, rigid body. And then we're going to add another component called fruit body. You can drag the root onto the rigid body here, because we'll just reference this. It just needs to know what the rigid body is. And that should be it for how to create a VGGT crop. Now for the other plants it's going to be a little different, but essentially think you would just attach like these fruits to the main plant and just have the regular game object. You don't even have to do any of this collision stuff. But we can go back to the regular scene, and if we go to the plants folder in VGGT, we can drag out our new game object, and you can see it in the game world. That's how you create a crop with VGGT and Unity in our repo.